How therapy transformed my life as an entrepreneur. So it was June 2021 when I finally made the decision, I'm gonna quit my job. It was at the height of the pandemic and things were a little bit unsure, right? But as a therapist, our business as therapy, right? Therapists, things were going really well for us because people were having to deal with demons and thoughts, feelings, people that they were able to avoid because they were able to go to work or go to the movies or go to these places that were open. And now everyone was forced to their confinement of their home. Everyone was quarantining, right? So it was very tough during that time for people to, let's say, relax, find peace, be able to practice self-care the way that they normally do. And that led to an increase of anxiety, depression, and everything that you can think of, even divorce, if you will. But during that time, I actually hit a roadblock. So I remember I quit my job, told them that I was not coming back, right? So I ended my career as a high school counselor and I was going full time with my business. And I remember as I was doing this, I felt really excited, but a little nervous because I didn't know if, these clients that I currently had was going to be consistent. If I was going to be getting the consistent leads I was getting before. And unfortunately, my greatest fears actually came true. During that time, a few months later, was probably the worst time that I ever experienced as an entrepreneur. Things got really hard for me. I went months where I was honestly losing $3,000, $4,000 a month. So the savings that I built for the past few years was gone. It was all eaten up. And things were actually so bad during that time that I actually had to purchase my wife's engagement ring with a business credit card. And I only did that because I had a few more months left where it was interest free, right? So things were really, really hard. During that time, I picked up a book and I started to learn about a specific therapy, right? And within this therapy, I started to learn all these different techniques that I would then start to use with my clients. And what I realized was that there's actually a way that you can do hard things when you don't believe in yourself, when you're experiencing anxiety, when you're experiencing depression like I was. Like there's a way you can actually get through that and accomplish the things that you're hoping to accomplish. And I'm actually going to share some of those things in this podcast because if it wasn't for this therapy, I wouldn't have been the entrepreneur that I was or that I became, and I wouldn't be here giving you this podcast episode today. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into point number one. So one of the greatest things that therapy did for me was that it helped me to work hard when the work was hard. Sounds like it's like, oh man, like what do you mean by that, right? Like, guys, trust me, like if you're ever trying to accomplish anything great, you're gonna run through hard things. And it's because it's worth it, right? Nothing great is gonna come easy to you. That's just a fact of life. And if it did, there's a great chance that you wouldn't appreciate it. You would just throw it away or be careless with it, if you will. And that's why going through tough times is just so important. Therapy, what it does is it helps you to be more okay when things aren't okay. There may be times in your life as you're listening to this podcast where things, hey, probably going well. Work for you, maybe going well. Your business may be going well. But there may be parts of your relationship, there may be parts of how you see yourself. There may be other things. It could be the money that you're making. There's so many different things. But when things get hard, when things are not perfect, you can actually still have a great life to live. And that's what it helped me to do. It helped me to realize that things didn't have to be perfect for me to do the work. I didn't have to feel comfortable, confident, or feel good about myself in order to do the work. And when I say do the work, I mean the work for my business. Because think about it. If you were losing $3,000 a month, right? So making no money, if you're in that situation, would you be able to still show up at 5 a.m. in the morning and work on your business? Would you still be able to show up for the clients that you do have? Would you still be able to show up in your marriages, your relationships, the way that you would want to show up in them? Because during those times, stress will creep on your back. It feels like an 800-pound gorilla just beating you down. And that's how I felt. But because I've learned these techniques, I was able to actually let go of that monkey and just put him on the side of me, if you will, while I kept working. And that's what therapy does, guys. It has this ability to help you to do hard things when it's hard. The second thing that I learned in therapy that transformed my life as an entrepreneur was that I was able to identify the stories that was holding me back. And I did this with self-awareness. I remember one day I was with a friend, if you will, and we were just talking, and I was telling him that I was really struggling with my business. And I remember he asked me, he said, "Where do you think your lack of confidence comes from?" And I sat and I thought, and I came up with an answer. And the answer was, well, I wasn't great at basketball. And I allowed me not being great at basketball to leak into my personal life, to leak into my professional life. And me not being great at basketball, and we're talking over 10 years ago, I allowed that story to now be my story personally and professionally. And with therapy, right, I was able to learn how to let go of that story. Because here's the thing, the context that you still see and hold your thoughts, your stories, that is more important than the thoughts and the stories themselves. Because unfortunately, I can't change your past. I can't delete your stories. But what I can do, and what you can do, is you can add more chapters to this book. You can add more chapters to this story, and you can change the whole meaning of it. Because what you will end up doing is you'll turn this one part of your book, right? This one part of your story, which was the whole story, right? So the title of your story, and you could take that title of your story and make it one chapter of your book. You could take this old story, which dominated everything about you, right? Every character in your life, every action that you've ever took, you could take that story and you can make it one page, one line, to be honest, if you really, really wanted to. And that's the power of therapy. It can help you to let go of the stories that's holding you back. And point number 3, and make sure you subscribe to this channel, but point number 3 as to how therapy helped to transform my life as an entrepreneur was that it helped me to accept the tough parts of my journey so that I can get to where I'm at now. It's not always peaches and roses or, cotton candy and ice cream or whatever you want to say, right? It's not all like uphill, if you will, right? Not too many parts of life is like that. But can you accept when it's down? When I was down, literally, right? When my bank account was down, and when it was down, guys, I was down to maybe like a month, maybe like a month and a half of bills. Like I was basically on my last. During that time, it was hard, but the work didn't stop. And the work didn't stop because I knew so many other great people before me, they've experienced this as well. And this is where you get into that compassion piece. Because what happens, the bad part of what happens is that people tend to isolate and think that they are the only one going through this problem, that they're the only one who has ever started a business and did not do well the first few months or the first year or whatever it is, right? As a matter of fact, Amazon went about 8, 9, or maybe 10 years before they had a profitable year. It happens, guys. But to believe that you're in a category of your own, to believe that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that would be a disgrace. That right there is the one thing that would get in your way of having the success that you're looking for. Thinking that it's you, like at your core, there's something that's wrong. That's not the case. And that's where this humanity, this compassion comes from. Being able to let go of my story, being able to get over myself, and stop and ask, has this happened to other people? If I were to ask some of the people that I look up to, what would they do if they were going through this situation? Like being able to imagine that answer. Being able to imagine what some of my, let's say goats, right? So some of my goats, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see behind me, I have Kobe, and on the other side, I have Denzel Washington. If I were to ask one of these guys, if I were to tell these guys what I was going through, I need to ask myself, what would they tell me in return? That's a therapy technique that I've learned, and it helps me to get over myself really, really quick. Because whatever advice they would give, I need to take that in and hold on to it and move forward with that piece of advice and not the negative advice that my mind is giving me. And that's the way to get through tough times. That's how you actually accept and embrace the down parts of your journey. And the reason why is because many of the people that you look up to that are successful, they've had down parts of their life as well, down parts of their stories. And I'll even add this. When I hear people's stories, I'm actually more fascinated when they tell me about the down parts than the highlights. Because the down parts are the things that helps me to see that whatever I'm going through is actually pretty normal. And that I can go through these down parts, have these tough times, and I can still be great. And so can you. So I'm gonna summarize the 3 ways that therapy has transformed my life as an entrepreneur. The first way is that therapy helped me to work hard when the work was hard. The second point that I made was therapy helped me to see what old stories were holding me back from my future. And then the third part was that therapy helped me to accept the tough parts of my journey so that I can go from where I'm at to where I want to be. So with that being said, this is Coach Wells. I'm a licensed therapist, and thank you for checking out this episode.